Good morning, buongiorno. Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone. I believe I can speak Italian, or am I supposed to speak English, Italian or French? So I can speak Italian. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here with us today. This meeting has been organized together with Jaume Azens, who's the moderator for the first panel, together with me. Then we'll have Stella Galan and Cecilia Strada. And finally, to conclude, Damagare, who will end the list of the left MEP involved in this initiative. I'm tasked with saying a few opening remarks and welcome remarks. Allow me to start from Sea to City, which is an initiative which in my city, Palermo, 2021 was launched together with Potsdam City Administration in order to uphold the 2015 Palermo Charter, where we proposed international mobility as a human right, and we proposed the abolishment of residence permits, which in my view is the new death penalty and a new slavery for the 21st century. So I believe the freedom of movement cannot be denied to anyone, and all the distinctions between asylum seekers and economic migrants, all distinctions are the antechambers of dishuman changes. So we refuse them officially in 2015 in Palermo, because when asked the question, how many migrants are there in Palermo, we didn't respond with a number. We said, nobody. Those who live in Palermo are citizens of Palermo. There's no difference between those who are born in Palermo and those who live in Palermo, because migrants are, in my view, an extraordinary resource for our future and for the growth of our communities. We should stop thinking of migrants as victims of our selfishness. We must think of them as a development resources for our cities and our communities. And I do believe that if Palermo has turned around, that happened thanks to somebody who reminded us that God can have a different name from Jesus Christ, and they can eat different things from spaghetti and listen to other music from Sicilian or Italian music. So this is what I called openness for the sake of our cities. And mayors, in this respect, have a first-line role to play, because mayors do not have armies and do not coin any money. So think of the freedom of a politician who doesn't have an army and doesn't run the economics. So they're freer than prime ministers, basically, as long as they have a vision based on freedom. So in this respect, I believe the task of a mayor is basically to make visible those who live and inhabit a city, because invisibility is the antechambers for the violation of human rights. So if I am invisible because I am a criminal on the run, or if I am paperless, St. Francis, for instance, I can be dangerous for myself and the others. So if I'm a mobster on the run, and if I am a saint without papers, I'm regarded as equally dangerous. So mayors who have competence on this should be making visible those who live in a community. So how can you make visible those who live in a community? Well, in my city, in Palermo, we did a trick. I did not end up in jail, I promise. But my choice was borderline, really. So we basically released residency permits to those who lived in Palermo. So we cannot issue passports, we cannot issue residence permit, but we can issue a document of residence. I can say that Mr. X lives in that street at that address, and so we did. And so what happened, that those who had those residency could have a legitimate job and then get a residence permit. They could lease an apartment, and when they interviewed me, when they interviewed some of the recipients of this project by an Italian newspaper from the mayor, you got this residency from the mayor, and says, I'd like to thank him because finally with this, I can pay my taxes and I can send the police to arrest them in case they break the law because I know where they are. So legality goes through visibility. So I can arrest someone if I know where they live. So this turnaround can be promoted, and this is my proposal for today. And it would be beautiful if we could all do this. So allow me in my fantasy. So we could have a legislative act or a directive or an action plan at European level allowing mayors, EU mayors, to issue temporary residence permits to migrants, temporarily, for 3 months. So this would allow those economic migrants and asylum seekers to look for a job and get an official permanent residence permit, or to rent an apartment and pay their taxes. This could be instrumental to remedy the unacceptable situation of a rule that makes a distinction between economic migrants and asylum seekers. Just like the life of one is worth more or less than the life of the other. So there's a list of worth for victims, but all human beings are worth the same and are equal. So what is unacceptable in our union, that after accepting this distinction, they do not allow asylum seekers who would be entitled to live in Europe to reach Europe legally. So you have property right, but if you want this right, you have to, appear in front of a magistrate together with a criminal. So you have the right to live in Europe, but if you want to enjoy this right, you have to be ferried by some criminals across the desert or across the Mediterranean Sea. This is unacceptable. This cannot be. And I think this is an example of a breach of the law. It's a criminal act because we prevent those who enjoy those rights from enjoying them. So I do not accept the distinction between asylum seekers and economic migrants. But then again, asylum seekers cannot really enjoy those rights legally because it's prevented. They're prevented from doing that. So this is my proposal for today's discussion. And so I would like, in conclusion, to thank all those people who would take the floor today, because we're all here, I believe, to do something tangible and material for some thought-provoking discussion for a European Union that seems to be in the throes of unacceptable nationalisms. So we're not independent, we're interdependent. We depend on one another. So the time of independence is over. Trump and Putin want to go back to a time of colonialism and independence. So we want to live in a time of interdependency, which is based on the United Nations, on the International Criminal Court, which is made of UNESCO, European Union, and the WHO, so which is interdependency. We all depend on one another. For a few years, on the 4th of July, I celebrated the Interdependence Day, starting from Philadelphia. So we celebrated that in Philadelphia with my American fellows in 2002, and then in Cape Town, and then in London. And then Trump and Putin came to power, and they're shredding interdependence to pieces. So give us back our interdependence. Thank you.
Buenos días. Voy a hablar en castellano.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be speaking in Spanish, so use the translation. Please, I will be moderating this panel, and I want to reflect on Leo Lucas' words. In 2015, I was working in Barcelona, in the area of refugees, and at that time there was a crisis of refugees because of the Syria crisis, and Barcelona and other cities such as Palermo, we created a network of cities because we had the conviction that the different states didn't completed the obligation to fight against these wars. So we thought that the municipalities had the obligation, the moral, the legal obligation to guarantee the international rights, things that the states were not doing. So we developed different refugees policies. I'm not going to enter into details, but Leo Lucas said something, and I wanted to reflect on that, on the importance of register refugees in the cities. We tried to close a center in Barcelona because we wanted Barcelona to be a city where these type of centers are not. And the policy came, and one of the ministries came, which was the representative ministry, and we wanted to close that center. And as I said, since we were not able to do that, we wanted to empty the center because we didn't want people to be there. So we created a neighborhood card. So no one had to be in that center. So we wanted to have some kind of a proof so judges couldn't send anyone to those centers. This was not our responsibility. Leo Lucas said it before. Municipalities, sometimes we don't have those responsibilities. And it's true. It was not our role, but we were worried about that. So our obligation is look for mechanisms as to be able to apply the law. And that's why I wanted to mention this case. At that time, we had to have that role, a role which actually was for the states. And now we are seeing the Gaza's genocide, and it's the same situation. So we should have an active role in this, because we see that states are actually supporting Israel because they are selling woods to Israel. So they are having an active role in maintaining that war. So I think that in this case, municipalities have the obligation to try to counter those tendencies and try to reduce this situation. And the same as I mentioned before in 2015, we need to try and go over our responsibilities because we see there are many refugees, migrants coming from Palestine, which are not receiving the same treat as other people. Sorry, Ukrainian people, yes. So I think there are racial issues here because they are not being treated the same. So I think it's important to start a day like today saying that we are in a specific situation where we are witnessing a genocide. And for example, the boat that was on its way to Gaza, trying to break this isolation, received an attack with drones, with Israeli drones. So this happened a few hours ago. So we are living this situation. We are experiencing this. So I think it's important to start a day like today with a minute of silence for all the girls and boys who died in this genocide.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to give the floor to the first panelist of the day. He's Mimo Lucano. He's mayor of Riace, and he's from the left. He's an MEP from the left. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning. I do agree with the words said by the two chairs. I am an MEP, but I am also a mayor, and I can, because I am a mayor of a small municipality in southern Italy. So this double role allows me to understand how the role of local government, regardless of the number of people living in a community, is really allows us to have an impact directly on what happens, which does not apply to the European level, if you will. My interest for the migrant issue, and I'm referring to migrants of all kinds, asylum seekers, economic migrants, regardless of their nature. So my interest for the issue started when I was not a mayor yet, and it happened by chance. Our coast has always seen many landings of or arrivals of people who were fleeing wars and misery and hunger and poverty. And so I immediately got involved in helping migrants that were forced by Western countries to, leave their lands and set off on a very dangerous endeavor to cross over. And this allowed me to see how when people flee those countries that are turning into deserts. So I realized how important these people were to breathe new life into our dwindling communities. So this experience of mine started many years ago, when in Italy there was a Turco-Napolitano law was in force, and there were a number of rules and decrees and regulations that followed, which were always targeted at sort of stifling or punishing, if you will, or hindering at least the arrival of migrants, which was regarded as a plague, as a problem for Western countries. So when I became a mayor, and I've been a mayor for several legislatures, and then in 2017, which was the year of the agreement made by the Italian government with the Libyan mafia, as I call it, to force people from sub-Saharan Africa to stay in concentration camps. So in that time, Riace was taken as an example to be stopped, because it was deemed dangerous by the powers that be, because our model was providing a solution to the tragedy of those who were fleeing wars, because we have many semi-deserted villages in our area where you have empty houses, empty apartments. And recently, new attempts were made to repatriate, or deport, rather, migrants to back to Libya, according to the agreements made with the rulers of the area. But this turned out to be a failure, because it doesn't uphold human rights. And this experience proved, my experience proved, that we're not only ethically called upon helping these people as people who are committed politically to stand by the side of those who are fighting to have their human rights upheld. But also, this helped us in a sort of renaissance of our semi-deserted villages. And this was the issue where basically, for the first time, we were giving a material, tangible solution to the problem, which sort of introduced new hope for our communities and hope for the world. But the powers were really against us, and there was a trial that went on for years. And it still goes on, because on the 9th of January, I am supposed to, or I'm scheduled to appear before the Court of Appeal of Reggio Calabria, because they want to stop me from being a mayor. And I've been elected mayor in June 2024, so I'm newly elected, basically. So a few days ago, I was deemed not suitable to put myself forward by the Electoral Committee by virtue of a law that is called Severino Law, because I had been convicted always in connection with the migrant issue. So I have acknowledged this situation. And again, on the 9th of January, they will stand me down as a mayor, probably, and this is purely and clearly an attempt by the powers that be to somehow stop me from taking the sides of the people who are deemed as, a public order issue, and they're deemed criminals and responsible in the cause of all the bad there is in the world, just for political reasons, to score political points. And it should also be said that in wealthy societies, what matters is, people just look at themselves and they're selfish. They don't care about the others, and they prioritize, having stuff rather than helping people.
Please, if you could conclude, because we have a lot of people taking the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that concerning Gaza, we have been active, we have been interacting with the city of Gaza, not just in solidarity, but also like materially, by giving shelter for those who managed to flee Gaza. And recently we got a request from the mayor himself also to protect their archives. So they asked my little municipality to help them out with that task. So Riace, well, its mission is being active with migrants. And I wanted to replicate this model all over Europe. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Lucano. We will give the floor to José Luis Alfaro, Deputy Mayor of Rivas-Vacia, Madrid. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jaume. Thank you very much, MEPs and participants. First of all, thanks for inviting me to participate in this very interesting space and panel. I'll bring the point of view from Rivas. If you don't know about it, it's a town near Madrid with more than 100,000 inhabitants. We have a very young average age, in the 80s. I mentioned a few friends that we were just 500 inhabitants, and that has posed different challenges as for a city. And now we've been creating Rivas and creating this city around 2 workers' cooperatives, and that brings a different spirit that makes us different, at least in the community of Madrid. And also, due to this topic of today's topic, to be a welcoming city, we have a residence spirit and this reception spirit as well. And we have to think about what happens in our city and what happens beyond our own borders, and what the people have to face and look for a better life. I should remind as well that in our city in 2006 and 2008, we had the second and the third social migrations forum, which was a very important milestone that brought our city together around solidarity. First of all, I would like to share the document and the previous reflection that will bring this value and the importance of the municipalities. It has been said before, we don't have all the remits, but we have the most important ones, because the neighbors and the people arriving to our city, they're looking for administration, for help, and they come to our council as the first point of contact, and they're looking for the full integration within the city. I will mention 3 main action lines we're working at. And the main one is inclusion. People coming from abroad should be welcomed and part of the city, and neighbors should understand that, because that will be a success guarantee, and that will allow us to share the anti-hating speech. We handle the welcoming of migrant people coming to our city from the integration point of view, first of all, obviously. That's why we have agreements with SEG from 2015, for example, when we had the most problems and the biggest crisis coming from people coming from Syria. And we are the first point of contact for those people, and we really delve into that. Also, I have to mention that related to what we're talking here in the EP, the urban agenda that we approved last year in our city, Rivers, we have a very important chapter, which is the inclusion, welcoming of migrant people. We cannot forget about that. And that's what we're trying to work on. First of all, our international protection program, that it's been articulated in two axes: integration program to asylum seekers and any people looking for asylum in Spain. We bring resources for the basic resources, and we accompany them. That's very crucial for any person. We welcome them temporarily as a first phase, and then we, with all the Spanish authorities, we try to find all the resources and housing and covering basic resources and the schooling for children and give them autonomy as well. And then we have other resources, such as the work in insertion. In Rivas, we have a specific department to work to promote the labor of these people. And in 2015, when we had the refugees crisis from Syria, many people were volunteering and giving up their own houses for these people, and saying that we have some children, for example, that can help also to accompany other children. And that's a program that we promoted from the council with different volunteers, and it's still in place. And also we gave autonomy to the people landing in our cities. We have different programs for different people, and we welcome them in the associations and shelter centers, because beyond the intervention, we have to take care of refugees and give them the possibility to participate and to be included, something that we try to promote. The integration program, as I mentioned, is an intervention program for women's. And we have many Maghrebis inhabitants in our city, and we have an association, AMAR, which is fighters, women from Morocco, and they participate actively in the society with integration, with cultural activities. It's very beautiful, actually, to see how they organize cultural days so the city can get to know their culture, their cuisine, their sweets and candies. And it's a very important role that they have. For us, it's very important to have the participation with other associations, local associations that work specifically with migrant and refugees people. SEAC, or the Red Cross, and locally we have the Hispano-Romanian Association. Our city grew thanks to the migration coming from Romania as well. So they're already part of our city. And especially in the education sports, we have more than 20,000 children at school, and it's part of our city life. And we have to reinforce the inclusion. As administration, we can facilitate some resources that we have or that we can get, and to claim that the local councils should be able to participate in the policy-making processes that we will be implementing, because we cannot forget that councils are the crucial part to create different policies and to be able to have resources, economical resources or facilitation resources for the people. But the most important part is the participation of entities working specifically on migrant people so they can work. And also I want to highlight the role of our city in the cooperation role. In Ribes, we have 6 cooperation projects that are promoted by the council with other local organizations, so we can promote projects beyond our borders and to create this welcoming spirit, to facilitate and create this city that I'm very proud of, actually, and we're proud to be part of this organization. So thank you very much for inviting me today. I would like to congratulate you for this initiative. There's still a lot of work to do, and we have to raise our voices from the council point of view, and we're still a lot of work to do and fight the hate speech. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you, José Luis. Now we will give the floor to my friend Miriam Perez, City Councillor of Villanova y la Geltrú. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, MEPs, Deputy Councillor, Mayors. It is an honor for me to be participating in this panel regarding the reception and integration. And it's an honor to do it with all the mayors around us, coming from different realities within Europe, and we all share the same challenge to build open cities and fair cities. As Jaume was mentioning, even though municipalities don't have legal remits, we do have the role of inclusion and work inclusion as well. So we are the ones creating, making rights into reality, and we face the society. So municipalities are the first line of democracy and in the society. I will talk about my city, by the Mediterranean Sea, with more than 72,000 inhabitants. Of them, 9,000 of them are from migration origin, and 1 out of 8 neighbors is a foreigner, something that really enriches us in our day-to-day day, and we have more than 40 different nationalities. This diversity is facing many challenges. Undocumented people, we have linguistic problems, cultural problems, vulnerability, but also it creates some opportunities, a human capital, cultural enrichment, and other challenges. In our city, we created a specific strategy, creating vulnerability into opportunity and diversity into cohesion. As my colleague was mentioning, I wanted to highlight 3 action lines that we've created from Villanueva. We're talking about regulation, social integration, and awareness to society. Regarding regularization, we do it through the call program from the Council of Catalonia. We are able to give contract to other workers with temporary permit residence. In Villanova, as a first phase, we will be hiring 5 people through this program, giving them an opportunity at the labor market and giving them the opportunity to have a residence permit. It is a very brave opportunity, because to those that want to condemn immigration and those people to invisibility, we are offering them a labor contract. And I want to be very clear in this case. These policies have been the aim of direct attack in Catalonia, in my neighbors' villages as well. The far right created some problems, and they tried to stop this program. they claim that they're using the fear and misinformation to attack inclusion policies that really work, but they won't stop us. Secondly, the second action line is in labor insertion. The employment is the key for inclusion. And in our municipality, we're working through the Municipal Institution of Education and Work to create a training and VC programs. So in that case, the program that we have, we contract 6 students that are training on the public schools administration, and the 44% of people coming to our institution coming from abroad. 33% of them participate in social inclusion, and 30% of them have program and trainings. We're talking about thousands of people that have access to training and education, and they're able to have a proper work. The third example that I wanted to highlight is the awareness, and we did through a program. This program of refugees coming to our city are able to explain their own experiences defending human rights in speeches and conferences that we organize in the education centers for students. And for example, in the last year, we had people like Sani Ladan coming from Cameroon, Laniki Azam, refugee from Palestine that came with us in 2004, actually, and she already mentioned that the genocide happening in Palestine, and Mas Sara, defender of the women's rights in Catalonia. Of all these action lines that I mentioned, we have 3 outcomes, 3 conclusions. The first one is that inclusion is not a cost, it's an investment in social inclusion. Diversity is not a problem, it's a potential enrichment. And we cannot work alone, we need the cooperation and the support from Europe. To sum up, I wanted to wrap up with a political conclusion. Today, in all Europe, far-right are threatening the human rights of refugees through motions at councils, criminalizing people defending human rights, creating obstacles and barriers. And facing that, we have 2 options: resignation or the democratic affirmation. And I will vote for that. We have to defend human rights, and we have to defend all people. We have to defend all our communities, because when human rights are violated, we are weakening the human right of everyone. So Villanueva, we are promoting the role of the municipalities for equality and cohesion. Jaume was mentioning that at the beginning. And we will do it with specific programs, as we mentioned, with the data that we have and with the political conviction that we have. We will not stop before the hating and the fear. We will defend to the human rights defenders, and in this defense, the European municipalities should be united, be brave, and do it all together. Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Miriam. Now we will give the floor to Matthew Garabedian, Deputy Mayor of Bilioven.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. And I am Mathieu Garabedian. I'm the Deputy Mayor of Villeurbanne, which is around Lyon. If you look at the northeast of Lyon, it is Villeurbanne. So we're very close to the city of Lyon. It's a young town. Most of the population is younger than 30, but poor. 1 out of 5 inhabitant lives below the level of poverty. Now, we represent a quarter of the population of Lyon. this city has always been a place of migration, because during the last century you had people coming from Italy, from Spain, from Armenia, but also from Maghreb, and this goes on. So this is a city that has always had migrants coming to Villeurbanne, and with a relatively good acceptance on the part of the city. And we say, coming from elsewhere, come here. So this is something which is the philosophy of our city. Let me say a few words about what happened over the last 10 years so that you'll understand the development that have taken place and which is associated with the national level. So when Calais was being dismantled, there was a call to regions and cities to host some of the refugees who were there. And one politician where we live said, well, nobody should come in our area for sure. And so Villeurbanne said, okay, if that is so, we're going to accept to host about 50 of those migrants. And we decided to discuss this with the population, and a citizen jury was created. So these were volunteers who would accept to work in hospitality, in providing hospitality to these migrants. It was an interesting relationship because the person who became the mayor of Villeurbanne made a lot of proposals to turn Villeurbanne in a welcoming center for these migrants. And so we decided to put this in place and discuss it with the population. My first term of office was in 2020. The first action had been started by my predecessor, de Bardouche, and the first expression of a crisis in Villeurbanne was a problem in terms of accommodation. There were many people who were living, squatting buildings or living in the streets. They did not have any access to proper shelter, to hygiene, and to food. So the first thing that was, the first idea that was born then was to create a possibility for these people to have access to showers and bathrooms. So for these who were without a shelter. So this enabled us to have a direct dialogue with the population, and we signed the Declaration of People Without a Shelter, the homeless people. This was signed by the Fondation Abbé Pierre, which changed its name in the meantime. And so it was the question of equality for all and access to accommodation. And so right from the word go, the idea was to have concrete actions in the field, but also look at issues such as the fight against discrimination, so legal considerations, the rights that these people had. And this became really a mission for us. Now, the crisis in terms of accommodation meant that municipal property was made available. We bought some new buildings. The schools were also used because we mostly host families in Villeurbanne. And so one of our missions in Villeurbanne is to make sure that all these children could also go to school, and we're particularly attentive to that. And so many of these families don't have a home, don't have a shelter, but their children can go to school. Now, it is unacceptable to have side by side children who have no place to live, but who can go to school. So the decision was made to open the school to these families so that they could at least have a roof over their heads. So whenever we have municipal buildings, we try to cooperate with the state in creating those accommodation centers, also neighborhood centers, for instance, to also provide new places for little restaurants that would have had to move otherwise or would have been bankrupt. So right then we had this willingness to work hand in hand with the administration of Lyon, put in place some reception centers, and we were extremely ambitious because we wanted to have this hospitality policy, reduce the number of homeless people. We worked on the issue of these places that were used, how to create showers and bathrooms, how to ensure cleanliness, and fight against mafia, because in these places there are many people who take advantage of these people by making them pay to have access to toilets, for instance. And so the whole policy of the state was attacked when there was a change of people in power, but we continue to work on networking and to have European networks, and we have an alliance of hosting harbors and so on. So we try to come up with new ideas. And so we've also concentrated on giving citizenship. How do you explain that when you live in Villeurbanne and work in Villeurbanne, you're actually a citizen of Villeurbanne? We're not the only ones. So we've issued a sort of citizen card that can be distributed to people, and this tells people that we recognize them as inhabitants of Villeurbanne. We made sure that everyone could have access to municipal services such as libraries, the pool, swimming pool, the schools, and these cards can also justify as domicile for those who had no shelter. And we rapidly were confronted with another problem, which was how to regularize those people, because many of them have no proper paper, and so we needed to regularize them to enable them to live in France. We worked hand in hand with trade unions and with legal counselors, and even the administration accepted to do some training to make sure that these people would not be abused, because there are gray areas in the legislation, and we don't want this to justify people from abusing from these undocumented migrants. And so we've done something that others didn't do, and it wasn't always an easy situation for us. So this is to say that we are living at a time where things are getting tougher, even at national level, and some people no longer want to work on creating accommodation and shelters for these peoples. In fact, they even send the police to check whether the people who have found shelter, refuge in these centers are documented or undocumented papers. I mean, the idea is to get rid of undocumented people and to close the centers and save money, so to speak. So this is the sort of climate which is prevailing. in political campaigns, everyone was saying the extreme right is going to gain power. So what can a city like Villeurbanne do in case we have a government of center-right? So we tried to change our internal administrative procedures to try to get rid of sensitive data and only keep the essential data so that these people could have some guarantees in terms of rights and be protected. So this is to say that it's a form of resistance. We are resisting the Macron government, and who knows, maybe tomorrow the extreme right will come in power, and we believe that the state has failed and has not kept its promises to these people. We need to offer shelter to everyone, and there need to be alternatives. There are solutions. We know these solutions, and we know what we would do if we had more money, because, of course, that's always the problem. We don't have enough money to provide more accommodation, more facilities for these people. This is a problem we have in Villeurbanne like everywhere else. Thank you for your attention.
Merci, Mathius. Ahora haremos un cambio de ponentes.
Let's now go to the next round of speakers, the last ones for today's session.
Bonjour. La próxima
So the next speaker for today is the city councillor, is the mayor of Martin-de-Mer, Anne Giraud, and you have the floor.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to take the floor. Now, within the Municipal Council, I am the deputy taking care of hospitality and unconditional reception of migrants in our municipality called Melle. It's situated in the west of France. It's definitely not part of the usual migration routes, but back in 2016, our elected people decided to open a center for asylum seekers, and we've decided to keep this center under municipal management. The reason why I'm speaking today before you is to say that it is important to keep management under municipal management and civil society management. What we've made the choice that it would be municipal management. Our structure can host 15 asylum seekers. It is funded by an allowance from the state. Our city of Melle does not contribute to the funding, but a social worker works full-time and she knows the area quite well, and she makes the link with social association, sports association, and she will help to provide administrative advice. So Anvita, which is our association of cities and regions that welcome people, it is a structure which is it's small and human. We have a proximity approach, and the social worker is always going to accompany the asylum seeker throughout all the administrative steps. This favors mixity amongst cultures. We try to avoid separating the various cultures, and people adapt easily to living together. So, solidaire structures such as Resto du Cœur are well known. People are familiar with their food preferences. They are known by name, and people are recognized in their dignity. These small structures, once the asylum seeker has obtained his documents, the social worker keeps on helping them to steer the person in her itinerary, especially if the person wants to stay in France. In Mel, we have people who were able to benefit from apprenticeship courses and training, and they chose to stay in Mel because they felt safe there. They knew that they could find accompaniment in their integration journey. There are other associations which are a bit larger, regional or national associations. They also work with people in exile, and but there is always a shortage of people to accompany these people in dire straits. Asylum seekers have lots of difficulties in their everyday lives. Accompaniment is limited to only 1 day per week. They have no access to healthcare. They don't have access to training and school system. They're not integrated in the municipality. But as a rural municipality, we see that these asylum seekers should be integrated in the municipality. And because it is small with this human dimension, acceptability by the population is greater. Integration is more promising in our municipality. Thank you.
Merci, Anne. Après elle, después de ella.
After her, I'm gonna give the floor to Sofia Marcola. She is the vice mayor of Ioannina.
Thank you. Thank you for your invitation. I feel privileged to be here with you. Ioannina is a city of around 150,000 inhabitants in northwest Greece and is a city at the first line for newcomers, with more than 2,000 newcomers. In Ioannina, we try hard to develop an approach that rejects both victimization and demonization of all newcomers, whether they're refugees, asylum seekers, or from a migrant background. We start from a simple premise. Newcomers are people, individuals with their own hopes, desires, strengths, and weaknesses. This model, refugees are people, grew from the ground up in and around local refugee camps. In 2016, people living in our 3 local camps brought to light that the way they were being treated was problematic. On one side of the spectrum, they were treated like invaders or threats, but on the other, they saw local people who were trying to do good and were well-intentioned, but in effect, local people were trying refugees like victims, taking away their agency. It was then we realized that creating this distinction between people, whether newcomers, humanitarian workers, public servants, or locals, even well-intentioned, often reinforced the newcomer or refugee label as a fixed identity, contributing to othering and dependency. Since then, our work in Ioannina has focused on dismounting these dynamics and creating spaces for meaningful recognition, trust, and reciprocity. Our work is rooted in the understanding that newcomers are not a monolithic group, but individuals with distinct experiences, capacities, and aspirations, and have to be visible. In practice, our approach involves intergeneration and intercultural programs that build real relationships, training for public servants and local actors on anti-othering, co-creation of policies and services with newcomers, and refugee-led research that informs decision-making processes. Since 2016, our approach has been delivered to thousands of people, integrated into other municipalities across Europe, including Milan, Paris, Limerick, Prato, and Lisbon. Featured at leading universities, including the Cambridge, Harvard, Cornell, and the London School of Economics, and has been the leading approach in 4 AMIF projects. This approach works because when everyone is seen as having shared responsibility and an equal voice, trust grows. This trust-building approach helps to navigate potential tensions and conflict between local communities and refugees, which often arise from a perceived sense of inequality. When the local community feels that its own needs are being neglected to meet the needs of others, a negative attitude can emerge. On the other hand, when all residents, whether refugees or locals, see that they benefit from the same programs and initiatives, it is more likely that there will be a sense of solidarity and cooperation. Linking integration initiative to joint programs for vocational training, housing, and psychological support for refugees and locals, for example, is therefore crucial. The key is to invest in programs that do not separate people into refugees and locals, but treat them as members of the same community. Our city is a reference point for humane, innovative reception and integration, bringing attention and partnerships. There are some examples from our city that illustrates how this approach is implemented, like our intergenerational activities, where elderly locals and refugee youth share joint activities. This has been successful in challenging the elderly's biases about refugees and building a shared community. As well, the local Migration Integration Center, called Academia, serves as a multifunctional center where different services are provided, such as translation, support with entering the labor market, and guidance in joining social protection programs. The Pixida project targets mental health issues in young adults. We deliver regular capacity building training for municipal workers with the support of local NGOs. We are currently working with a group of international architects and the University of Ioannina to renovate an abandoned building and convert it into a cultural center for our city, an example of a service that benefits both local and migrant communities. An important initiative is in the In Loco project, which is running in 12 countries, and it is coordinated from Ioannina. The project adopts our approach to foster participation in urban and rural territories, including newcomers in decision-making processes and making them visible. Within this project, the Municipality of Ioannina is also carrying out transnational research in collaboration with 4 academic institutions. The results of this research will be used to support the establishment of New European Welcome, a refugee-led think tank that will be based here in Brussels. This initiative aims to connect EU policies with local territories and bottom-up approaches, which aligns with the advocacy demand to ongoing dialogue between EU institutions and municipalities. On 17 to 21st of November in Lisbon, representatives of municipalities, including our municipality, humanitarian organizations and academic institutions will come together for the In Loco Policy Development Week, where we will apply our approach to policy design processes. You are all welcome to join us there. Regarding challenges, you are also strongly aligned with the third demand, as the lack of systematic funding is one of the biggest challenges we face. We struggle to collect funding, for example, to support important projects like Academia. Less centralized funding would allow our municipality to create more efficient and tailored programs that respond to the specific needs of our community. Concluding, Ioannina is now known across the EU for its innovative, human-centered model of reception and integration. We have shared our approach with other cities, policy centers, and universities. Our models has attracted projects and funding to the city, which the whole community benefits from. We have noticed improvement in trust, coordination, and participation. There is less us versus them, and more we. These are concrete practices any city can adopt. Intergenerational exchanges, policy co-creation, staff training, and participatory research that embeds a de-othering into everyday service delivery. Ioannina holds the view that all the interventions for forcibly displaced populations should be community-based and should involve the community which welcomes the refugees and migrants. In Ioannina, stopped asking people to fit into our system and started to try to shape our systems around people, both refugees and locals. This shift, away from othering and towards shared civic life, made our community stronger, and it is a model any European city can adopt. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sofia. La próxima ponente es...
The next speaker is Elsa Sartori from Zagreb. You have the floor.
Officer from City Office for Culture and Civil Society, so I will speak about our integration policies and more visible and more effective integration measures that we as the City of Zagreb developed. So the City of Zagreb approaches the challenges of migration and the growing anti-migration backlash with a strategic long-term vision that understands integration as two-way dynamic process. Integration is not just about supporting other migrants groups or newcomers, it's equally about building a receptive society involved through mutual understanding, inclusion and participation. While integration and migration integration policies are primarily within the competence of the national government in Croatia, the City of Zagreb recognized its responsibility to treat migrants equally and develop inclusive local policies. Migrants are an integral part of the city's demographic and social fabric, and their inclusion contributes to the overall well-being and cohesion of the community. Well, it is also important to know that Croatia has not had a national integration strategy since 2019. However, significant developments are underway to align national policies with the objectives of the new EU Pact on Migration and Asylum. So during this summer, we have a drafted national policy on inclusion and migration and also the action plan, but they are not still valid. Why I'm saying that? Because if you are a municipality and you're bringing some integration framework or strategy or developing your integration policy, you need to have a legal basis. So in the absence of the national strategy, the City of Zagreb has proactively developed its own local integration frameworks. These initiatives aim to provide support and services to migrants, fostering their inclusion into the city's social, economic and cultural life. By doing so, Zagreb not only addresses the immediate needs of migrants, but also contributes to the broader objectives of national integration policies. I will now start to explain our integration journey of the City of Zagreb, which began in 2022 and can be divided in 3 stages. So Zagreb integration efforts began with the city's first formal action plan for integration in January 2022. It was developed with the support from the EU-funded Connection project, connecting towards cities integration, which give us not just access to the European funds, but also the expertise, know-how, knowledge, and also good practices from the other European cities. So maybe this is the good way how to start if you are in the city and the municipality and don't know how to start your integration policy. So the EU projects can really bring you more valuables, not just financial. So the obligation of the City of Zagreb in this project was adoption of an action plan for integration. And with adoption, the Zagreb has become the first local self-government unit in the Republic of Croatia, whose representative body has adopted a document containing activities, implementation deadlines, indicators, and planned funds. This is not only the first local integration document in Croatia, but also the only one its kind in the country. This document has significantly strengthened cooperation between civil society organizations and City of Zagreb, creating a sustainable model for implementing public policies at the local level. Also, what this first action plan brings, it is important that we establish a formal coordination of integration, which is the mayor working body. It's comprising from city officials, civil society representatives, also migrants group as representatives from not just asylum seekers, representatives on international and temporary protection, and foreign workers. Its implementation relied on close collaboration with civil society organizations to ensure that the services were people-centered and community-based. Key measures included translation and mediation support for protection beneficiaries, Croatian language courses, cultural workshops, women's empowerment programs, staff training in education and social services, and comprehensive public awareness campaign. The second phase, and now it's still valid document, was adopted the second action plan from 2023, and we are now extended at the end of 2025. The legal basis of this action plan is the cession of the City of Zagreb to the Integration City Charter. With this charter, mayors express their intention to promote the integration of migrants in European cities, and it's kind of confirmation that Zagreb recognizes the richness of diversity that is open to all citizens, and such it will be recognized at the level of the European Union as an active participant in the integration of migration and refugees. I pick up the most effective key integration measures in this one valid one action plan. And one of the most visible and effective integration measures from the action plan was the establishment of the Welcome Center, an open and safe place where migrants and newcomers can access essential information and support in one place, not just about the services and information that are provided by the city, but also about the services and their rights in the scope of the state. The center was open in cooperation with UNHCR Croatia, which funded the work of two NGOs operating with it, the Red Cross and the Croatian Legal Center, which gives direct legal advices in the center. However, due to the shifts in global political priorities, UNHCR is phasing out its presence in Croatia. As a result, new funding resources must be identified and planned to ensure the continuity of the center's activities. Another important integration measure is provision of free Croatian language courses implemented by the NGOs and language schools. These courses are completely free of charge and do not require any fees or participation costs, unlike those offered by state institutions. This makes them more accessible to migrants and asylum seekers, scientifically supporting their social inclusion. And the third innovative initiative is alternative teaching, which has become a powerful tool for combating rising xenophobia in Croatia. Last week, we also had the protest against foreign workers because the most migrant population in Croatia are comprised from the migrant workers which come from the South and Southeast Asia. Through this alternative teaching, through these programs, migrants take on the role of guest teachers in Zagreb's primary and secondary schools, sharing their knowledge, personal stories, cultural practices, and creative skills. In just one class, students gain new perspective, challenging stereotypes, and experience cultural diversity firsthand. This role reversal, where migrants are valued for their knowledge rather than defined by trauma. It helps. Now we are in this so-called third phase, as the City of Zagreb recognized that we need to have strategic document for the longer period of time, and now we are drafting program for integration for 5 years long. This goal is to build sustainable integration through this new draft program, which is planned to be adopted by the City Assembly by the end of this year. The goal is to build sustainable integration models through accessible services and intercultural programs developed collaboratively with migrants, local residents, civil societies, city institutions, the private sector, trade unions, academia, and national bodies. The aim is to create an open support environment that recognizes diversity as a social asset and ensure equal opportunities for all residents to participate in economic, culture, and civil life. To achieve this, Zagreb is decentralizing integration effort by leveraging local councils, libraries, and culture centers to bring communities together. Our new integration activities, upcoming activities in this new program include district-level needs assessment, training community leaders as community connectors, and including migrant representatives in coordination committee for integration. Migrants will also help test the Welcome Center website and review translation to ensure accuracy. Community connectors will serve as informed interpreters and culture mediators, embedding participatory integration across city services. So to conclude, maybe what is Zagreb doing? Zagreb model shows that municipalities can effectively respond to migration realities and anti-migrant backlash by building inclusive, participatory and well-coordinated integration frameworks. The city remains committed to adapting to changing migration patterns, improving service delivery, involving migrants in decision-making, and fostering a welcoming environment where every resident can thrive regardless of origin and status. Thank you.
Gracias, Liska.
Thank you very much, Liska. Now I'm going to give the floor to Luca Salvetti, Mayor of Livorno, who will be with us online. You have the floor.
Thank you. We would have loved to be there with you, but our flight was cancelled last minute. Very interesting meeting. We are here to give our contribution as the city of Livorno. We have always been a welcoming city. In 1951, we had our own Livorno laws, trying to attract to our city all people that wanted to restart anew. All professions and all religions and all nationalities are basically represented in Livorno. On the 22nd of December 2022, we have become one of the safe harbors in the welcoming strategy. It is possibly quite far away from the areas where the migrants got off some of the migrant ships. More than 2,000 migrants were welcomed. 412 of them were minors. I have to say that we have managed to set up a great cooperation and network among institutions and volunteers. Civil protection units and social service departments are present when the ships arrive, and we are really, first of all, there to take care of the human aspects of their arrival, with food and mediation services made available. There are quite a few projects and structures that do work in our city. We have been quite active in this field. And by the way, I wanted to show you this. It is a manual that relates all of our experiences, and the title is "Here No One is a Foreigner." I think we have been reacting very swiftly as a city. Welcoming migrants is one of our tasks. This being said, of course, we have some limitations. We are, of course, integrated in the Italian welcoming system. However, I believe that we should not forget that there is also a European dimension to be taken into account. When destinations are chosen, some aspects are not really taken into account. Basically, health operators make a report, prepare an assessment, but this assessment is not considered when it comes to choosing where a person should possibly be relocated. Also, I have to say that the Italian government in the past 3 years has been highlighting that the number of available spots is much lower than the demand, especially for urgent welcoming. And besides that, there are special categories that should be taken into account more. Special spots for young people, women, especially where they were victims of abuses. We totally support the document that was drafted to conclude today's event. We also believe that involving municipalities more is fundamental so that we have a system that is really able to welcome and integrate migrants. It is essential to be up to the task. What we request is that some standards are applied everywhere in arrival municipalities so that needs are assessed with shared criteria. And we also believe that further cooperation would be welcome among European states. We believe that the various governments should take into account all of this when decided about migrants' relocations. Sometimes migrants quit the structures where they had been welcomed, and we lose track of them, which could also pose a threat in terms of safety, security of our cities. As a general remark, I believe that we should try and suggest a counter-narrative after having heard what the far right says. The far right has managed to build a cultural hegemony, I would say. In the previous century, we had a totally different approach. But what the far right is saying now is we do not have enough resources to make sure that everyone enjoys the right. So if we help migrants, German citizens' rights, French citizens' rights, and so on, and their needs will not be fulfilled. But if we follow this reasoning, all in all, we will not be able to save people. What we have to say is that resources are enough if wealth is correctly redistributed. It is a war among poor groups. This is what I think, and this is what we wanted to share today in this very important event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca. Now we will have a short break so we can follow up with the next panel. But I would like to thank everyone, City to City, and the organizer of this session. And after this break, we will have to move from another room. Thank you very much, everyone.
Maybe also for the people online, you have to change from one link to the other one in Cecilia's YouTube channel. Thank you.
you still have a bit of time for coffee and think.